Hi, greetings. We're Greg Dixon and Jerry Smith with Health Pioneer Theater. And today we're going to talk with Dr. Tori Hudson, Women's Natural Health Pioneer. Jerry?
Yes, thank you, Greg. We have been looking forward to having Dr. Hudson on. I've known her for many years, and she's just a fascinating person in the realm of natural health to talk about and talk with. So first, we're going to do a little short video, a little bio of some of her accomplishments, and then we'll come back and meet her.
Okay.
Let's meet this well-respected authority on natural health care for women.
Welcome to my home here outside of Portland, Oregon, next to the lovely Forest Park, and my vegetable garden in the background. And actually living in nature and living close to nature and being connected with nature for me has been a really important part of my becoming a naturopathic physician, and important part of my ongoing connection with natural medicine. So I'm grateful every day that I get to wake up to the trees and the sounds of the birds, and get my hands in the dirt and eat the blueberries. And it's for me, it's all part of my natural approach to healthcare, actually. So one of the things that has been important to me as a naturopathic physician is to not only teach and lecture and educate and practice in my clinical practice, but also to delve into the research in natural medicine. This involves a lot of library research and computer research, but also it's been important to me to actually conduct research. And this was important to me as a formulator for Vitanica products, is to actually conduct research in a clinical setting or in a academic setting to really understand it, and forward the science, forward alternative medicine. And can we not only research an individual herb, an individual nutrient, but have combination products that are subjected to scientific research. That's been important to me, and that's been a satisfying part of my career. And the most satisfying isn't to do the details of that, but to actually bring forth something new to you all so that we can basically all help more women more of the time. And research offers that. My primary motivation for practicing women's health care has actually come from you and you all. I'm not anticipating that makes me a little weepy, but that has really been the truth of it, is women coming to me, seeking my help, women who are suffering, and asking of me to help them. And I didn't always know how to help them. And so I had to work really hard to know how to help the patients that were talking to me about all the things that were going on with them. And so really it's you all that's responsible for this this entity and this career. And I thank you for that, because I know you deserve it, and we all deserve it, and every woman on the planet deserves it. So hopefully I'm a little part of you learning about your health, learning how to make some changes, learning how to make smart decisions, and helping you along the way of better health and wellness.
Well, that was wonderful. And with us tonight live is Dr. Tori Hudson. Thank you for coming, Tori.
Hi, Jerry. It's always sort of kind of fun to see that little snippet that we did together a few years ago.
Yes. You know, I've known Tori for over 15 years, and I'm always impressed of how diversified she is. So I just want to emphasize what our little video tried to bring out. because she started off in 1984 graduating as a clinician. She has a practice. She's had a practice a women's time for probably, has it been ever since 1984 or maybe a little afterward that you got on your own?
No, the clinic started, I think, in 1993-ish.
Yeah, that's
So about
understandable.
10, 11 years after I graduated. I worked
Okay.
at the college full time before that.
Got it. Okay, cool. And of course the national, it's now a university, of course, not a college,
Yes.
right? They've
Yes, it's now
upped their
called
game.
National University of Naturopathic Medicine.
Exactly. So before we talk about how you diversified, what prompted you to go into natural medicine?
You know, I get asked that question a lot over the years, and I believe it was a convergence of forces. I was born in 1952, so I graduated from high school 1970, which I believe was the first Earth Day. So that was one thing that was happening. It was the 1970s, and then there was so many things happening that influenced me. There was the back to the land movement, living on the land and subsistence living and farming. There was the feminist movement. There was the self-help, do your own speculum exam kind of women's bodies, women's selves. Those
Oh,
I
yeah.
think were the major forces that kind of just came together in this nugget inside of me. And I was also an athlete from childhood, like a young competitive athlete from age 7. And so there is a certain required attendance to one's body and health to be a competitive athlete. And I didn't extend that into my 20s, but I was for over 10, 12 years a competitive athlete. And so that, I think, set the stage in terms of what I was eating, what I was doing, how I felt. But I think those forces of feminism, natural health movement, self-help movement, back to the land movement, Earth Day, it all came together for me. And there was only one school at that time, and it was a tiny school, and it happened to be at that moment in Portland, Oregon. That was, so I was first introduced to that as a patient, and then I kind of went off and did my own 1970s hippie-ish kind of thing, and including living on the land in remote southern Oregon. But I remembered seeing that school and being at that school and being at the clinic, and then once I realized that the world wasn't going to blow apart and I could actually go back to school and it would be worth doing that. Then I decided to go. I'd been to college for 2 years. I dropped out, and then I came back because I identified this now real idea of learning natural medicine and becoming a natural medicine physician.
Well, I definitely would say you're an overachiever because you went from a clinician to teaching the teachers, teaching
Yes.
the faculty who would become doctors. So what motivated you to seek that ambition, and why did you stick with it for so long?
Well, let's see. So I went to Naturopathic Medical School 1980 to 1984. And I would say, that was an immature, like early phase of the profession maturing.
Okay.
And so it was really like you graduated and then you did one, teach one kind of thing. There wasn't a lot of people with a lot of experience around. And so so it was easy. It was an opportunity to actually fill that gap. And my mother was a school teacher, so that might have had some influence on teaching. And I did some coaching. But I think when I remember my first day at Naturopathic Medical School, I remember thinking, I would like to stay here and work here and teach here. And so who knows why that happened, but why I had that thought, but that thought became reality. And so I worked, as a full-time academician and clinician for those first 11 years. And it's very satisfying. It was very satisfying for those number of years to teach eager people that want to learn the same thing that I want to learn, and the same thing that rings my chimes, rings their chimes. So, and it was an exciting time of the profession, like I said, early phase of maturing, and there was just we were just starting to have a national organization. We were just starting to have more states, more states besides two, be licensed. We were just getting our professional standards in order. So it was like this early phase of the profession where you could easily contribute, and you could easily have an idea that people listen to, and so that makes you feel good when you feel like, hey, I'm part of making this happen. And now I enjoy more teaching physicians than I do actual still medical students. Just that as I have more expertise myself, I gain, I guess you might say, more personal and professional satisfaction from people asking questions that I would ask, not people asking questions that based on not knowing very much yet.
Yeah, probably the same questions each year in that scenario.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like, how do you spell diverticulitis? I mean, it's not that bad, but I used to ask those kind of questions. But now I enjoy someone asks a question that I'm asking, or that maybe I ought to be asking, and so it furthers my education more to be teaching fellow clinicians.
Well, so at some point then you took it to the next level as a researcher. And you mentioned in our little bio that you talked about the research that for discovering different treatments, maybe new treatments or combinations of treatments to better help your patients.
Right.
I really appreciate that, where you show, I mean, it was a humble moment in our interview, because like, I don't know what to do. You don't want to be that person when they're coming to you for help.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that was, I'd say, because natural medicine has been around a long time. I don't want to say that our profession was the beginning of natural medicine, but it was certainly, as I said, the beginning of our naturopathic profession, but also the early phase of evidence-based natural medicine, like significant bodies of information were just steadily unfolding about a research study on black cohosh and a research study on things more than just Adele Davis vitamin A or zinc, like that. So in the 80s, that German research, thanks to Michael Murray, I think, a lot, and Don Brown, who kind of brought those studies to our awareness. So those that early phase of the building of this now immense body of scientific evidence for botanicals and vitamins and amino acids and minerals and some in the area of homeopathy as well. That motivates me. It's like, oh, here's a research study on, let's say, this is a few years later, but here's a research study on green tea suppositories and treating the human papillomavirus. So then how can I incorporate that into some things I used traditionally that I learned from Dr. John Bastyr, and then a small study I did of Dr. John Bastyr's treatment for cervical dysplasias, and then adding, oh, here's a vitamin A study on cervical dysplasia. Here's a little beta carotene study over here, and I build my own sort of treatment protocol. And then in now the more modern era, we have green tea suppositories and that research, and turkey tail mushroom and that research on HPV. And now, these things get now kind of alter my thinking and alter my treatment strategies and what I can offer to patients. So the research, yes, we can conduct a small clinical trial out of our office, but most of us are relying on what I would, research that's happening in Iran or India or Maryland or Texas, and in all over the world, China, Japan, and on a single study on this single ingredient, and then we're incorporating that into sort of, you might say, more multi-ingredient treatment plans. And that's now, so my research now is more reading articles, reading research articles, writing about it, reworking it, sharing it, teaching it, lecturing on it, and using it in my treatment plans, and using it in Vitanica formulas as well.
Well, you mentioned black cohosh,
Yeah.
and it sounds like as you were in practice that maybe some would respond well with just that, and some would respond not so well. Is that
Right.
what kind of led you down to a multiple action treatment?
Well, that's, kind of the beauty and the curse of naturopathic medicine is we the beauty is that we have a fairly complex structure and are willing to use and recognize the value of multiple ingredients and multiple levels of treatment, mind, body, spirit. And yeah, these studies are generally just on one ingredient and one little set of symptoms. So clearly, black cohosh is a good example, but everything is an example if it doesn't help everyone all the time. And so let's say I have a menopausal patient with pretty good, moderately severe hot flashes, night sweats. Black cohosh helps her. She can tell me, oh, they're reduced by about half. I have about half as many, and they're about half as intense. And that's great, but like estrogen therapy is 85 to 100%. So I'd like to get closer to that. So then we go, well, could we do better with a different herb, or could we do better with sticking with the black cohosh and adding something to that? There's only very few studies on combination herbal formulas and menopause symptoms, and one could use those combination formulas. But also over time, I've recognized, well, she has hot flashes, but she doesn't just have hot flashes. She has a little depression. She's not falling asleep very well. So now we incorporate the research on St. John's wort in menopausal women and valerian in menopausal women. And now we might be using black cohosh with St. John's wort with valerian. That's how my mind puts it together anyway.
I know that's worked very well for your patients for you over the years, and there's lines of them waiting to get in to see you. So results matter.
Results matter. Yeah.
Yes. So that part of your being an educator then was being an author, and
Yes.
so to mind you have a professional manual, and you have a encyclopedia for consumers. And
right. The consumers and practitioners, it kind of works for everybody. I've written many chapters for many other books, like Textbook of Natural Medicine and Dr. Tiaroni Lodog's menopause book and women's health book, and some other areas where I've written, chapters. And now, that book, that my Women's Encyclopedia of Natural Medicine, is, oldish, like 2008. So now I resort, like everybody else, with articles and blogs and such.
Right. Well, things move on. Oh, obviously, there's so
Yeah,
much.
as soon as you put something down in a book, I'm like, dang, that's.
I
I wish I would have
forgot this.
talked about this study or
Right,
that
right.
study, and so that being more current with things like my blog. Thank you for putting that up. Is as a way that I can keep it fresh and up to
Right.
date.
And the electronic medium really helps you just be instantaneous in sharing good news or bad news. So
Correct.
in a way, that's the benefit of our technology now. So
Correct.
that makes sense. Definitely. Well, personally, what do you find most gratifying role to play over the years? I mean, you probably rotate them quite a bit, and you're adjunct professor to basically every naturopathic college that I know of.
Yes.
So, tell me though, what does it mean to be an adjunct professor in different naturopathic colleges?
It means you're not. It means you are sort of working. You don't work on site at the college as an employee in a regular basis. So I take interns in my office, and I do guest lectures in their generally their gynecology classes.
Okay,
So that's
cool.
what it means for me.
Speaking of gynecology, I bet
yes.
I rarely get a chance to say that to a guest. But working with you, what fascinated me, the most interesting, like surprise remedy, we'll call it, that, and you know what I'm thinking of, I think, is
I'm not
what
sure.
you discovered.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Oh, okay. Well, a hint is boric acid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that, because that was so cool.
Boric acid was like it was almost one of those key moments in my career, to be honest with you. And this was in the late 80s, I'm guessing. So I graduated in 84. So I read this study in a very conventional gynecological journal called the Journal of Reproductive Medicine. And lo and behold, it was on boric acid capsule suppositories of a certain dose for women with chronic yeast vaginitis. And I was like, oh my God, 98 out of 100 women were cured of their chronic yeast vaginitis. And that led me to an obvious, significant treatment suggestion. But it also turned into me formulating for a company called Bezwecken. This was pre the existence of Vitanica.
Okay.
And he had asked me to help him with some things. And so I said, look at this study. I think you should do this. And he goes, oh my God, you should have told me about this the day you read this. And so for years that we had the boric acid capsule suppositories out of Bezwecken. And then when Vitanica came along, David was kind enough to let me carry on through Vitanica, and that was and might still be our #1 best-selling product. And there's, people can make boric acid capsules themselves if they want to do that. They have to go buy some boric acid powder meant for human consumption and stick it in a capsule and know the protocol to use. And then there's all kinds of regulations that have occurred that alter the compliance with Deshay laws and such. But
I see.
Yeah, boric acid has made a huge difference in my success with treating not just yeast vaginitis, but bacterial vaginitis as well. Significant success. And I've taught it to a gazillion other people when they didn't know about it, patients and physicians. And I've written about it and then formulated these products that, have impact in the consumer market and such. So it touched upon, many needs of mine. I do not have ADD at all, but I'm way too German for that. But I do have a need to avoid boredom. So I do this doctor, teacher, writer, formulator, entrepreneur really is just like an outgrowth of my personality needs. because not necessarily, yes, we could talk about virtues of it all, but also it suits me, it suits my personality to do all these things, and they beautifully intrinsically weave into each other and affect each other. If I'm
Right.
if I'm doing research on this, then I'm writing about it, I'm speaking about it, I'm teaching about it, I'm formulating about it, I'm helping patients about it. So it all makes sense. And I advise young naturopathic doctors to, it's just in terms of interest and revenue streams, frankly, to diversify, you might say. But to be a doctor, it really helps to diversify because of just, I feel like I can help more women that way if I am knowing more, keeping up to date more, having more experiences in the field, that I can help, therefore, more women.
Well, I can see the synergy there, and it's
Yeah.
obvious it's benefited your career, your practice, but mostly your patients and your readers.
For sure.
So let's talk just a little bit about, while you're with us here, about what you think what are some of the big issues that maybe still need attention in women's health.
Yeah, I would say super big is Alzheimer's disease. That is, affects women far more. It affects women and men, but it is definitely a women's health problem. The numbers are far greater in women. And I mean, there's so little, there's no treatment, so basically there's no treatment. And how can, we need to know everything. We need to know what's causing it, what's the risk factors, other than just having a parent with Alzheimer's disease. What can we do to mitigate those risk factors in a significant way, and what can we, and let alone treat it. So that's big. Uterine fibroids, there's still no real good solution for uterine fibroids. Once they become problematic, people are pretty much looking at surgeries, but there's a little kernel of hope here. There's been, I think, a couple, I think the third one just came out of green tea and uterine fibroids, and this last one was green tea with vitamin D. So there's a little hope on the horizon there. Endometriosis is another one. It's just multiple, there's no one cause, there's multifactorial causes, therefore there's multiple mechanisms that need to be addressed that are underlying it all. And natural medicine has, a few studies there to offer, one on N-acetylcysteine, a little bit, one study on melatonin, but it's like there are one-offs. There's one study on this, on that, sorry. So those are three that, I think that I said three. Those are three that come to mind. But of course, there's more just common everyday thing like osteoarthritis. Again, more common in women. It is, we think, also worse postmenopausally. So, and everybody's taken a stab at anti-inflammatory, this and that, whether it's curcumin or boswellia or an NSAID, but that's not good enough either, in so many people. And we haven't even gotten to things like breast cancer and ovarian cancer, but everyday things are really the everyday gynecology things, and some primary fibromyalgia is another one that more common in women. Really difficult disease, often, too often. And then a little old chronic insomnia. Who would think that would be so hard? But it can be a really hard thing to treat and to be successful at.
So would you say you have, in these conditions, a stronger suspicion of causation from lifestyle, diet, trauma? Any hunches there?
I don't think, I guess my first thought would be there's no one thing. And
Multifactorial.
And I think also, let's just take something like endometriosis, where there's likely, heredity, there's likely some environmental exposures, there's maybe trauma. So, but are they all significant in each person? Is one more dominant and more influential in one situation than another? And that's the job of a good doctor, is to tease that out. It's like, oh wow, yeah, I think your exposure to dioxin was significant here. And I don't like to make up stories. I don't like to make up, just because someone had this traumatic event, that's the cause of their problems. I think that's way oversimplified.
Speaking of oversimplifying, then where do you factor genetics or epigenetics in your view? And it's more of an academic question, but
well, I think we've forwarded medicine quite a bit to understanding genetics and epigenetics. I wish our healthcare system was able to economically support really individualizing diagnosis and treatment, and that would involve not just regular old genetic testing, but these SNP testing, the nuance of genetics and how in our metabolic clearance of a certain agent and our enzyme activity and our neurotransmitter, this and that. There's so much there, so many rocks to look under, but right now it's you just can't afford to look under all those rocks. Most people can't afford that. And so we have to make a lot of presumptions and assumptions, but there's, we can say without a doubt that, well, at least I can say without a doubt that, we are successfly kind of harming ourselves.
Okay.
By what we by what we have become accustomed to enjoy life or to live life, and just way too many chemicals and way too much harm to the environment, and it's just way out of balance, and so I'm that to me is probably where I would, if I could transform the world, it wouldn't be let's genetically test everybody so we could find all these little nuggets of information. It would be let's change our relationship with Mother Earth, and that's what we got to. That would be what I would consider transformative to so many things: illness, poverty, economics, well-being, you name it.
Well, that's a good start.
Is that a downer or an upper to end on?
No, I think what you're saying is there's not many simple answers, and it really needs a whole revamping of our attitude toward our Mother Earth, as you call it, an apt description, instead of our adversary to be tamed and overcome and so forth.
Yeah.
It's a harmony issue.
Harmony.
Right?
Harmony. Yes. Lovely word, isn't it?
It is. And it's been lovely talking with you.
Nice to see you, Jerry. We're getting older, I see.
Yes, but wiser too. So
that's right.
There's compensations.
All right. Well, keep up the great work, Jerry.
Thank you.
You have a lot of consistent mojo in this arena of public education. So way to go. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We so appreciate you appearing, and we wish you all the best in your educational efforts. I know that you're so dedicated to that, and because you know that ultimately that's what helps people prevent problems and overcome them. And thank you for what you've done for so many years, Tori.
You're welcome, Jerry. Thanks for acknowledging that. Adios, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.